Pan-African Parliament is set to elect its new president and 4 vice presidents in Midrand today. The elections have been marred by clashes between regions over the principle of rotation, which resulted last year in the election being abandoned. The session opened with the AU Commission Chair, Moussa Faki Mahamat, pleading with MPs to give all African regions a chance to lead in an effort to unite the continent. Let's discuss this further then with Liesl Louw-Vaudra, a senior researcher with the Institute for Security Studies. Liesl, good to have you on Daytime Update. So the issue of rotation has still, even though the South African MPs who are there are saying they're hoping that voting will happen today and that the region will get the presidency, but the rotation matter has still not been settled. So what are the chances that we'll have a smooth process when voting begins this afternoon?
Yes, good morning. Absolutely. We will have to see whether a sort of an agreement was reached behind the scenes, and that parliamentarians actually listened to Moussa Faki Mahamat yesterday in his speech, where he pleaded with the MPs, as you said, to accept the principle of rotation. Now, he admitted that actually legally the principle of rotation was actually not ratified by all the states yet. Now, it sounds like somehow an oversight in a way, because most African Union organs and institutions, almost all of them, actually have this principle of rotation, whether it's formal or informal. I mean, he mentioned the election of the new NEPAD head, who they had chosen someone from the same region initially as the previous chair, and then heads of state said, no, we must get someone from another region. But we could also look at, for example, in 2020, when President Cyril Ramaphosa appointed an advisory council on fighting COVID-19. It was, I think there were 4 members, and then they realized, we need someone from North Africa, so brought someone else in. So it's really something that is part of the African Union's way of doing things. So right. Literally we have to see whether MPs are going to accept this.
So as things stand, only Southern and Northern Africa have not held the presidency since the formation of the PAP in 2004. There was so much fallout over this issue last year that nothing was basically achieved. Why is there such resistance to the issue of rotation from the regions which have held the presidency in the past?
Yes, I mean, it is true that the acrimony last year, it really became almost violent. That was in May and June last year. And I think the bitterness and the divide then amongst the MPs just created such a deadlock that, as you say, logically they should also accept. They've been from East Africa, from West Africa, and then 2 presidents from Central Africa. Numerically there are now more member states of the Pan-African Parliament. If you put it to a vote now, they would be numerically more numerous. So, for example, if we had a vote, which was also a contentious issue last year, if they're now going to vote on whether to have a rotation, then those opposed would just be more numerous. And I mean, your question, why are they opposing this? They are sort of looking at it from a legalistic point of view. They say they have a very good candidate from East Africa, from South Sudan. They feel that they have a valid case and that there should be a fair election in this instance. The East African candidate was actually from Tanzania way back, in 2004 when the PAP first started. So I think things have soured also to such a point that now, those who are opposed to this rotational principle just doesn't want to give way. And of course, also, as you saw last year, the whole thing sort of spiraled into a francophone, anglophone divide, because most of the francophones, at the time last year, there was a candidate from Mali, for example, was up for election. So, but that's a totally false argument, because actually you've had 2 francophone and 2 anglophone presidents of the PAP. And I mean, on this continent, both the francophone and anglophone are not even the mother tongue of most speakers, and you have Arabic and you have Swahili and so on. So that whole divide, I think, really It's almost artificial, but somehow we see that a lot in Addis Ababa as well.
So on that then,
Yeah.
Liesl, because we're almost out of time, I wanted to ask you about
Yes.
the implications for
Yes.
the Pan-African Parliament itself and what it's actually able to achieve for the communities across Africa if the MPs who are there spend so much time fighting about who should be president, others seemingly don't want to share. What can the Parliament achieve?
Exactly. And I think that is the crux of the issue, that these MPs should show leadership and they should actually be there to, at the moment they're an oversight and advisory body. But we hardly ever hear the Pan-African Parliament make statements about crucial issues on the continent. They should advise the African Union when it goes wrong. Sometimes they've done some election observation, but very little. So what we really would want to see, even if the PAP doesn't now have legislative powers, that's a whole other debate. But I mean, with the powers that they have now, if they can get their bickering sorted out, they can really play a role and influence policy and, they should be the link between the heads of state of the African Union, get together in Addis Ababa, make statements, very often don't implement them, and then the people who want to see, Africa speaking with one voice, etc. So the parliamentarians really have a big responsibility, but because of all this infighting, it's just not happening.
Liesl, Louw-Vaudra, good to have your thoughts as always. Thank you.